Good evening, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the special council meeting. My name is Mayor Margaret Thomas and I will be chairing this meeting. The operations of council and the agenda for this meeting are governed by the provisions of the Local Government Act, Standing Orders and City of Kalamunda Code of Conduct. In the event of an emergency, please follow the instructions given by city staff and remain at the assembly point until advised it is safe to leave. This meeting is also live streamed and I would like to welcome those watching remotely. Are there any apologies, CEO?
To you, Madam Chair, only Councillor John Giordano.
Thank you. There are no questions, so we move right on to deputations. And the first one is Bev Dornan. Bev, would you like to come forward? And you know the drill, you have 10 minutes, and please just state your name and suburb.
This is new, so do I press this button?
You do.
Bev Dornan, Wattle Grove. Good evening, Mayor, councillors and city staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight on a matter that will have profound and lasting consequences for our community, our environment and our shared heritage. I'm of course referring to Alcoa's proposed bauxite mining expansion into the Darling Range. Before I begin, I must say I am pleasantly surprised to see Councillor Madolo bringing this motion forward. Councillor Madolo and I have never before been in agreement on any environmental matters. Nevertheless, I genuinely welcome and commend any councillor who takes a stand on protecting the Hills environment from such an invasive and irreversible proposal. This is not a minor issue. It is one of the most significant environmental threats we have faced in decades. Bauxite strip mining is not a gentle or temporary activity. It removes entire ecosystems, native forests, understory and topsoil, leaving behind altered landscapes that can never be fully restored to their original biodiversity and complexity. The Darling Range is home to unique flora and fauna, many of which are already under stress from approved but unsustainable development, climate change and disease. The proposed mining area is in a vital drinking water catchment. Removal of the vegetation and disruption of soil layers can lead to increased runoff, irreversible salinity, and contamination. This threatens the quality and reliability of our water supply, not just for Kalamunda residents, but for the broader metropolitan area. Once a water catchment is compromised, the damage is permanent. We cannot gamble with the safety and sustainability of our water supply. Mining is a short-term extraction industry. It removes value from our land forever. In contrast, the city is currently known for its ecotourism and primary food production, both of which are renewable activities which can grow and adapt without destroying the very asset they rely on. It is worth noting that opposition to this proposal is not limited to a few voices. Major environmental groups, including the Conservation Council of WA and various Aboriginal heritage groups, have made their objections clear. Local community groups, residents and environmental advocates are united in saying that this proposal is incompatible with our vision for the hills. While I commend the intent of this motion, I urge the Council to ensure that any resolution tonight is strong, unambiguous and backed by action. This means a formal statement of opposition sent to the state government, the EPA and Alcoa, collaboration with neighbouring councils to present a united front, and public engagement to keep the community informed and mobilised. The city has an opportunity, and I would argue a responsibility, to take a leadership role in opposing this proposal. Let the powers that be know that the hills are simply not for sale. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Bev. Before you go, councillors, do you have any questions of Bev? Thank you very much for coming to speak to us. I would now like to invite Janelle Sewell to come and give her deputation, and Janelle knows the drill.
Microphone. Thank you so much, Mayor and councillors, City of Kalamunda team members and members of the public for taking the time to come out this evening after your public agenda briefing to discuss this incredibly important issue. And I do, certainly what Bev Dornan stated tonight resonates with me, and I too am surprised that it is David Madolo who is pursuing this particular item in light of our objection to previous policy which sought to revoke our tree protection policy. So happy to see that there is some acknowledgement of the importance of biodiversity and tree protection within the city. This evening, many councils are having meetings like this. The Shire of Mundaring, City of Gosnells, and also City of Armidale. This is an issue that Serpentine and Jarrahdale has had to deal with for some time now. I was involved with the WA Forest Alliance campaign, and I spoke to that community regularly about the impacts that mine was having on them. The dust that would blow across their homes, the dust that would blow across their cars, the impacts on their health, the amount of wildlife devastation, vets crying to me because of the amount of animals that they've had to put down because of the mining operation out there. So I have also been on tour out there. I did the Alcoa tour. Now the trees that are being replanted, the rehabilitation, is not native trees. These are trees that are introduced and does nothing in terms of biodiversity. That is a trend that will continue if the expansion is allowed. This is an American company. It's a company that has bought a social licence to undertake these works for decades. You'll note that Alcoa sponsors many environmental groups and in terms of tree planting, etc. But what's become very apparent now is that they no longer have the licence to cause that amount of devastation within our Perth Hills region. Why? Because we now know the jarrah trees will never grow back without that bauxite. Once that bauxite is removed, the jarrah is gone. It will never be able to be the trees that are needed for our endangered cockatoos. So in 2021, I worked with WA Forest Alliance and we fought for forest protection. This was recognised, and the McGowan government at that time did choose to protect our native forests. And they did this to protect biodiversity, to address climate change, and did so in acknowledgement of community support for forest conservation. That was enacted last year in 2024. Now in 2025, we are fighting to protect these forests again. And not only will it impact our biodiversity and our forests, it will also endanger our water. It's been acknowledged that the likelihood of contamination of Perth's water supply is extremely high, and that is a result of the mining operation which is occurring in Serpentine and Jarrahdale. We have one of the lowest rainfalls, yet we are putting our water at risk further by allowing this expansion. It is completely unacceptable, and Alcoa does not have the licence to expand. So councillors, I do appreciate that we have not seen eye to eye when it comes to tree protection. But when our water is placed at risk and contaminants are allowed to blow over communities, surely common sense in this instance must prevail. And the fact that you are even allowing this meeting to occur tonight is evidence to me that you do take this issue seriously and you understand the significance. I thank you so much for doing this tonight, and the community and I entrust this decision and that you will act in the best interests of this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Janelle. She's running away, but councillors, do you have any questions for Janelle? No, you can run away now, thanks. I would now like to call on Joshua Clark to come and give his deputation. Thanks, Joshua. If you could just state your name and your suburb.
My name's Josh Clark and my suburb is Wollaston. Good evening, councillors, residents and stakeholders. My name's Josh Clark and I stand before you with the purpose of advocating to protect our environment, water security and community wellbeing. Tonight I urge the council to formally oppose Alcoa's proposed bauxite mining expansion, particularly into the Darling Range in the city of Kalamunda, to advocate strongly for our community's long-term interests. The scale of the threat can't be ignored. Alcoa proposes to clear between 7,500 and 11,500 hectares of northern jarrah forest. That's equivalent to 18 Kings Parks. It comes on top of 28,000 hectares already lost to the operations over the last 6 decades. We're not talking about minor environmental adjustments. We're discussing potential collapse of one of the world's 36 recognised biodiversity hotspots. Security of our most critical asset is at stake. The Water Corporation has issued stark warnings that bauxite mining represents the most significant risk to water quality. The specific concerns about operations near Serpentine Dam, Helena River, and that feeds into Mundaring Weir cannot be dismissed. Mining within 1 to 2 kilometres of these critical water sources risks sedimentation, altered hydrology, contamination that could affect residents. While Alcoa has provided a $100 million financial guarantee, this pales into significance at the true cost of water contamination to our region. When our tap runs dry and we require boil water notices, no amount of money will restore what we've lost. Our biodiversity is also under siege. As Janelle pointed out, the Northern Jarrah forests support over 800 plant species. It provides a critical habitat to 10 endangered species, including the black cockatoos. These birds depend on old-growth jarrah trees that take 150 years to grow for nesting hollows. Trees that once destroyed can't be replaced within our lifetime. Despite Alcoa's rehabilitation claims, leading ecologist Professor Dixon research demonstrates that these rehabilitated sites support 30 to 40% fewer species than intact forest. After 60 years of mining, the WA government has never deemed a single rehabilitation site successful. This isn't restoration, it's permanent ecological loss dressed up in corporate greenwashing. We also need to take into account health and heritage impacts. Mining operations generate fine particulate matter that travel kilometres. That poses significant risk to our constituents' respiratory health. Residents near existing operations in Hope Valley and Pinjarra already report dust deposition on their properties. This expansion also threatens the cultural heritage of the Noongar people. Elder Franklin Nannup states there's only one place in the world where jarrah trees grow. That's this country. We can't allow further erosion to the ancient connection to country these people cherish. And then we've got climate contradictions. Alcoa's refineries already rank among Western Australia's top greenhouse gas emitters. This expansion could generate up to 1.4 billion tonnes of CO2 by 2045. It simultaneously destroys forests, which is the natural carbon storage capacity. This directly contradicts global commitments to halt deforestation by 2030. This is a historic opportunity. For over 60 years, Alcoa has operated under a 1961 state agreement that has shielded their operations from modern environmental scrutiny. The current EPA review represents the first major public opportunity to hold this company accountable. With over 2,500 submissions already received, the community has spoken clearly. Yet the state government continues to allow mining under transitional exemptions during this very review. It undermines both its credibility and its urgency. My call to action is this. As elected representatives of the community, you have the power and responsibility to act. My requests are, number one, we formally oppose Alcoa's expansion proposal in the strongest possible terms. Number two, we submit a comprehensive objection to the EPA before the August 21 deadline. Number three, we continue to support community engagement efforts in a meaningful way. And lastly, we advocate with state and federal representatives for stronger environmental protection. We have a choice before us. It feels like a defining moment for our region. We can choose short-term economic gain that benefited Pittsburgh Corporation, or we can choose long-term environmental security, water protection, and community well-being for our children and grandchildren. The Northern Jarrah forests, our water catchments, and the community's future depend on the courage of local representatives to stand against powerful vested interest. This council has the opportunity to be on the right side of history. I urge you to protect what cannot be replaced, defend what cannot be restored, and preserve what belongs to future generations. Thank you for your time and your commitment to this community's future.
Thank you, Joshua. Councillors, do you have any questions? Thanks for coming to speak to us. And our final deputation is from Francesca Flynn. Francesca, would you like to come forward? Again, if you could just state your name and your suburb. Just there, thanks.
Francesca Flynn, Glen Forest, just over the hill in Mundaring. Oh, it's on, I think. I'm usually quite loud. Thank you, Mayor, councillors, CEO and staff. My name is Francesca. I'm the Executive Director of Bibbulnama Aboriginal Association. I'm a local resident, a business owner, a volunteer and an environmental scientist. As a local environmental charity, Bibbulnama strongly urges you to oppose Alcoa's expansion into our community and especially into Mundaring Weir drinking water catchment. Alcoa's current plan for our community is exploratory drilling, which carries many of the same risks associated with mining, so rising salinity, water flow disruption, erosion, dust, sedimentation, pollution, habitat destruction, wildlife disturbance, and disease. Whilst drilling might not always lead to mining, mining always follows drilling. And you can be sure that if they find what they are looking for, they will be back to mine here in the future. Community and scientists alike across WA have very serious concerns about Alcoa's proposals that relate to drinking water quality, community health, and the irreplaceable loss of environmental, cultural, and social values that are far too numerous for me to mention here in 3 minutes. Our forest is the only jarrah forest in the world. It is already under enormous pressure. Drying climate, low rainfall, dieback, shot-hole borer, increased bushfire risk, to name only a few. Yes, we know that last year Alcoa contributed 0.4% of our state's revenue and 0.3% of our jobs. Yet there is no independent cost-benefit analysis to properly consider the losses from our cultural, social, and environmental values compared to the relatively small economic gains that we get from Alcoa's continuous expansion. In 60 years and 28,000 hectares of forest cleared by Alcoa, no rehabilitated areas have been accepted back by the WA government as restored. Even worse, clearing is outpacing rehabilitation, which means there is a growing backlog. Councillors, ask yourselves, why are Alcoa allowed to mine in our reservoir protection zones that are designed to keep our drinking water safe when our community can't even hike in them? Why have Water Corporation been left to admit that they have little to no ability to protect our drinking water because their advice was excluded from Alcoa's operating conditions? Water Corporation themselves have said that the probability of Alcoa contaminating one of our drinking water dams is certain. Have you seen what they've done to Serpentine Drinking Water Dam? We believe there should be no further expansion until we properly understand all of the risks involved. The stakes are simply too high, especially in our drinking water catchments. What does the future look like for the Perth Hills if we keep mining the Darling Range at this ever-increasing rate? Where does it leave the world's only jarrah forest and our future generations? We urgently need to rethink the scale of mining in our forests before it is too late. Last night, the City of Armidale Council formally opposed this proposed expansion unanimously, and tonight, both the Shire of Mundaring and the City of Kalamunda will also consider their position. In fact, I've just come from Mundaring, where I also gave a deputation, and they've also unanimously opposed this expansion. Please, councillors, stand with your community and support this motion. Thank you.
Councillors, did you have any questions for Francesca? Thank you very much for coming to speak to us. So if we move on, there are no announcements by the member presiding, and there are no matters for which the meeting may be closed. Are there any disclosure of interest, CEO?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, there aren't.
Thank you. Then we move on to the motion. So we have a motion moved by Councillor David Madolo. Is there a seconder? Councillor Ritchie. We will go to the mover. Thank you, Councillor Madolo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, for 4 generations, my family have been proud to call this city home. My nonna and nonna came to Western Australia in 1950s following work, coincidentally in mining, at the Sons of Gwalia gold mine in regional WA. They worked hard, earned enough to start an orchard down in Forestfield, and eventually settled in Lesmurdie. My own parents built in Gooseberry Hill in the 80s, in the house that I grew up in, and I'm proud to raise my own daughter, the next generation, here in the place that we call home. My family's own story is one that many families in our city share. It's a story of connection to both industry and the land. It's a story about hard work, community, and understanding what's important in life. That personal history, of course, shapes my perspective tonight, but it also gives me a unique insight. I know the value of industry and of the life that mining gave to my family, but I also know the value of this land and the community that cherishes it. The proposal before us from Alcoa to expand mining on the Darling Range, including right here in the city of Kalamunda, poses a profound risk to the long-term character and amenity of the Perth Hills region. And this motion tonight is not about opposing progress for progress's sake. This is about standing up for the identity of this community, for our landscape and for our future. There's some kind of poetic coincidence to the fact that at this very point in time, our city is engaging with its community to articulate what it is that we want for our future. Workshops to determine the direction of our local planning strategy and scheme. I attended one workshop last week in Kalamunda and another one only a couple of hours ago in Pickering Brook, where this proposed mining activity is to take place. And in listening to the community, ideas were written on the board by the dozens. Tellingly, not one of those ideas supported mining our Jarrah forests as part of our future. And in articulating our identity, we needn't look any further than our very own name. Councillors, may I remind you that the word Kalamunda is derived from the Noongar words kala, meaning fire or home, and munda, being forest. Hence our city's unofficial motto, a home in the forest. I don't know about you, but I'm not sure I can get behind the name the City of Colour Bauxite Mine. And so here we are tonight as a council, and we will decide, will we stand for the long-term interests of our community, or will we remain silent while those interests are stripped away, quite literally, by the shovel, the truck and the mine? I've moved this motion because the proposal before us from Alcoa is simply not in line with the community's vision for the Perth Hills. It is not who we are, and it is not what we want to become. For over 60 years, as we've heard, Alcoa has been clearing the Jarrah forest, almost 280 square kilometres so far. That's an area nearly as big as the city of Kalamunda itself, and that's more than 9 of Perth's 15 major water catchments already impacted. And as we've heard, after all that time, after all that damage, not one single hectare has been rehabilitated to meet the state government's own completion criteria. Not one. The Water Corporation's own internal assessment, again as we've heard, and which was only obtained after a 7-month freedom of information battle, could not be clearer. Bauxite mining in our drinking water catchments is the single greatest risk to water quality in Perth and the southwest. And the Water Corporation in that internal report gave a grim warning. Contamination of the water supply is considered certain if this goes ahead. If that damage occurs, the upgrades needed to make our water safe again is estimated to cost $2.6 billion. And that's not Alcoa paying, that's us paying through an estimated 100% increase in water bills. So we'd be left with damaged forests, polluted water, and higher living costs. Tell me, where is the benefit to our community? This council and our community has worked for years to preserve the unique character of the Perth Hills. I believe in a future where we continue to support our primary producers, those growing the fruit and vegetables, where we support the secondary producers, our wineries, cideries, distilleries and makers, where we showcase the stunning landscape through adventure and ecotourism. That's the kind of economy we can be proud of, one that builds, not one that strips away. Councillors, in closing, once the forest is gone, it is gone forever. Once the water is polluted, it is too late to fix. And once the Perth Hills loses the character, we can never get it back. This motion isn't about politics, it's not about ideology, it's simply about protecting our water, protecting our land, and protecting what we love about the best place on earth. This is about us as representatives of our people sending a clear message that our community will not stand by while short-term profit destroys what generations, my family, your families, have built and cherished. Council, I commend the motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I now invite our seconder, Councillor Ritchie, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just before I make a start, I'm wondering if I'd like to take the opportunity to thank everyone for coming this evening. I have been inundated with phone calls and emails over the last few days, and given just how much short notice there was about this meeting, it just stresses to me how important this issue is and how much our community values our forest. So in speaking in favour of the motion, I'd like to reflect on the effects of Alcoa's operation across the Northern Jarrah Forest, which a lot of people would not know stretches from 2J to south of Collie, a huge area of Western Australia. And I'm sure what I will say will echo a lot of what's been said tonight. And as you know, Alcoa is a US-owned mining company that's been operating since 1961 under a state agreement with the Western Australian Government. It is to be acknowledged that mining and its associating processing have created both employment and revenue for the state, but at what cost? When the agreement was signed, there was no understanding of appreciation of either climate change or dieback. The uniqueness of the Northern Jarrah Forest and its status as a global biodiversity hotspot, nor the effects that the mining would have on the ecosystem were understood. It is to be hoped that if these climate and disease consequences were understood, there would have been some hesitancy to award such a wide-ranging and long-lasting agreement. But now we do know. We are watching the effects of a drying climate is having on the forest, with 2 forest collapse events in the past decade. Dieback has laid waste to many hectares of forest, and now the threat of shothole borer is real as it makes the jump to native species. Since its operation, we know that Alcoa has cleared 28,000 hectares of forest, and it's currently seeking to clear a further 11,500 hectares across 3 regions of the Northern Jarrah Forest over another 20-year period. The government provides Alcoa with an exemption under Section 6 of the Environmental Protection Act to allow the continuation of clear felling of the forest. So what happens when bauxite mining is completed in a particular area? Under the agreement, one condition is for a self-sustaining Jarrah forest ecosystem to be present when land is handed back to the state control. Since the 1960s, Alcoa has made many attempts at rehabilitation, some ill thought out, like planting pine plantations and Tasmanian blue gum, almost all of which had failed. However, according to the Biodiversity Conservation and Attractions, none of the rehabilitated areas meet the criteria of a self-sustaining Jarrah forest ecosystem. The removal of the substrate on which the vegetation communities rely and have evolved are a significant cause of poor restoration outcomes. This resulted in most of the diversity of plant species found in the forest being absent in the rehabilitation areas and key animal species struggling to return due to inadequate habitat. No amount of well-meaning rehabilitation can replace the lateritic substrata. The failure to meet this criteria set by the government must send alarm bells in allowing expansion of the mining operations across the proposed additional 11,500 hectares. Now, while we're talking about Alcoa tonight, it is also to be remembered, while this motion focuses on this expansion, Worsley Mining has also cleared nearly 10,000 hectares of the Northern Jarrah Forest since 1974, and the government has recently given approval for expansion into another 4,500 hectares. If a self-sustaining Jarrah forest ecosystem cannot be replicated after mining, what remains of the forest is under threat from a drying and warming climate, dieback and shothole borer. How can such a significant expansion of mining go unchallenged? As a local government, we are legislatively powerless to stop the expansion. However, there is a moral imperative that we represent our community in objecting to the expansion. We must be able to say to our children and to future generations, we took a stand. I urge councillors to support the motion.
Thanks very much. Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Before we go on, I also concur with you. It is so good to see so many people when we gave such short notice. And I'll just go to our Director of Development Services to ask him when we found out about this, which would explain the short notice. Please, Director.
Thank you for the question, and through the chair. The city first probably was made aware of this information through the Echo on about the 25th of last month. Following that, the week following, we reached out to Alcoa to set up a time to meet, and we were briefed on the 5th of the 8th of August, late last week.
So that explains our short notice. Thank you very much. Speaker against the motion. Councillors, even if you don't want to speak against the motion and you do want to speak, I'm going to allow that tonight, but please be brief. Councillor Stallard.
It's an amazing word, brevity. Sorry, you've got me again. Certainly thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for everyone being here in support of this motion, and I'm speaking for the motion as well. Again, sadly, there are times when we only become motivated in something like this when it directly affects us, and this has been certainly the Alcoa situation. The problem's been going on for a long time. While the state government has moved to protect our unique forest, I think they, as you've said, and it was said by Janelle, that in actual fact they ignored the elephants in the room, and that was Worsley and Alcoa. As a geography teacher, I have visited the Alcoa mining sites so many times. After 35 years of teaching and then driving the bus, I've been down there so many times, and the same questions always turn up. And they were asked, what are the gains versus the losses? Can it be rehabilitated? Will it affect the ecosystem? Will it be returned to its natural state? And will it affect the waterways, the catchments, and the quality of our water? Always we received a positive response, showing rehabilitation sites, and even informed that some of the animals previously there were seen in the area. What area, they didn't quite say. So on the surface it's effective, but research has shown that is not the reality. There have been so many major disruptions to our habitats by clearing, testing, mining, with the water contamination and the loss of so much of our potential biodiversity. I think I've paraphrased and jumped down a bit, but if I may congratulate and thank Francesca for her email, and I would like to do an analogy for you. She indicated that 280 square kilometres over the years have been cleared and developed for bauxite mining. If you want to get an idea of that, there are other ones, but I like the one where I'm doing some driving. If you put each square kilometre on top of each other, it's a distance of Perth to Margaret River. That's something to think about in the scale of it. The other part is that there's 105,000 drill holes being projected for each year, and coming to that, it's even in our water catchment, our water sensitive zones. So, and knowing that, you should understand that our water, the Water Corp have limited opportunity to respond or deal with this. So we're not necessarily getting the whole picture, but we're not getting the right response. If you think about some of the things that have happened in the past, you look at the sediment levels that have happened throughout our rivers and our creeks throughout the whole area of the forest or sclerophyllous forest, you'll see most of them are filled in. You'll see the sedimentation has occurred to the point where so many of the organisms relying on a marine ecology have been impacted and lost. And that includes the land-based animals who require that linkage plus the water, and it's gone. So I think, without me going too long, I think we need starting to understand its a unique nature, the vital role it has for both the climate. So this is the Scliferous Forest is unique. It's vital for climate of our area, for the biodiversity, and not to mention the sources of water, and for those who harvest the fruits of the forest. So only now we are starting to understand the full damage, the full value, and we don't even understand all of what's out there in the forest. So for the sake of our future and our heritage, we need to say no more, let's stop, and let's pressure the government to put a stop to the whole process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Stallard. I think everything has probably been said. However, would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Cannon.
Thank you. Mine's not as long as Councillor Stallard's. I do want to actually say, as Janelle and Bev both commented, we don't always agree on policy and legislation that does come through. However, what is happening with Alcoa and what they do want to do will affect the whole community. So I do stand for the motion. I also state that together with the United Councils, the stronger we stand, the louder our voice will be. So, yeah, let's stand strong.
Thank you, Councillor Cannon. Does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you. I also will not repeat the same things. I guess a question and a statement that concerns me is that I'm not sure that we or anyone here can tell me how many exploration, prospecting and mining licences are held within the City of Kalamunda. If somebody does know, can they tell me?
Through
Director?
the chair. Yeah, we'll need to take that question on notice. No, we're not familiar with how many.
Yeah.
active-
Well, I know that there is, and that was, I guess, part of my response is that it's not just about Alcoa. Alcoa is one company, and it's very simple to sell a deed, to transfer it to somebody else, and we're still here, and we're really just kicking this can down the road. I think, by the sounds of it, given what Councillor Madolo said, that mining was not on anybody's list, I think there is actually part of a discussion about what do these licences mean, because we do know from as early as the 1800s that there is an immense amount of geology and things, minerals that are of immense benefit to mining industries, and I think we need to sort of get into some sort of mobilisation mode to understand what that looks like. And also I think that it's great that we are involving the adjacent council to us. I actually think and suggest that maybe we could provide this also to the State Council, because also that is an effective mechanism to also build that space to the local council, to the state. And I think that that would be a much, I'm not saying better, but an additional way that we can sort of future-proof that strategy. And the other thing that I think that we also need to plan for is, this is great, but let us remember that we are a very small piece of this decision maker. The decision maker is the state government and all of their parties. And I think we still need to have some sort of mitigation strategies to try to do as much as we can to protect the community and support the community if and when this does happen. And I hope that it doesn't, but if it does, we do need a strategy to address that. So these are factors that I hope after this conversation we'll be able to continue.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. If there's no other speakers, and I just want to make the point before we pass this motion that I think that 4 points in this motion cover what Joshua Clark put down as his 4 points. I think it's a really good motion. We have a mover, Councillor Madolo, and a seconder, Councillor Ritchie. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thank you very much for coming out tonight to help us with this very important issue. And I now declare this meeting closed at 8:12 p.m. Thank you.